also been worried last week about being able to fill up your car with petrol? Are you already starting to worry about the Christmas turkey? It's maybe because most of us are not really used to being worried about such basic things as petrol or food. We might become more easily a bit almost freaked out by the present supply chain problems. We've seen before how easy it is to get infected with the virus of panic buying as we see others around us doing it, despite the fact that we, as Christians, we know these famous words of Jesus. It's very obvious that Jesus lived in much more uncertain times than ours when it comes to the basic things of life. And we've heard a reading of Joel, which reminds us how in the Middle East and in many other parts still of the world in our days, harvests can be completely lost by a lack of rain, or destroyed by something like a swarm of locusts. But in our time and place, a lack of HGV drivers and of workers in the food sector can also be really problematic for our farmers, and in the end also for us as customers, as we are now experiencing. Let alone all the many worries related to the pandemic, which only now slowly become less prominent in our minds, but they're still there. So Jesus teaching us that we should not worry finds us this year again in a very different way than many years before. But his teaching is of course always good and important to hear at any time. We should have Jesus' words at the back of our minds whenever our worries are asking for too much attention of us. Hearing his poignant question again and again, and which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? To be sure, Jesus, as so often, is speaking hyperbolically here. Some worries can be justified, and they may even help us to answer the everyday demands and challenges that we face in a measured and effective way. Justified worries can be channeled into finding proper solutions for some real issues that we are dealing with. But our worries should not wear us down in a way that we become depressed because of them. Jesus wants us to be grateful and joyful for all that we have, and to remind ourselves of the constancy of God's generous love for us, the pearl of great value. Well, when we read, for instance, about all the threats of climate change and all the other effects of human actions on our environment, on nature, it is easy to get depressed and anxious about our own future and that of our children and grandchildren. But we still have to believe that God is the King of the universe. So we should turn to him for inspiration to channel our justified anxieties into taking the right actions as consumers, as citizens, to make our own small contributions, trusting that the sum of them will make a difference. Being aware of the fragility of our planet should also open our eyes for the wonders of God's creation. To be grateful and joyful about all the beauty of it in this time of the year, a rich harvest of fruits and vegetables, the beautiful colors of autumn leaves and flowers that are very autumnal, all the things we celebrate on this Harvest Sunday. And in the same way, our worries about our own personal well-being can be channeled into, for instance, taking good care of our bodies by doing enough exercise and changing unhealthy patterns of eating and drinking. But we have to be careful with these worries. They can easily become excessive in all kinds of ways. And if such worries start to dictate the many small and big decisions we take every day, we will end up being more self-centered, egoistic, and selfish. And there will be less room for sharing what we have with others, because there is this little voice within us telling us that we never know if we might need what we give away today. We might need it for ourselves tomorrow. We should silence those kind of voices. Yes, life is uncertain. We don't know what happens tomorrow. But Jesus tells us to concentrate on today and to stop living fearful lives, because fear stands in the way of love. It hinders us from seeing the needs of others and be generous of heart. Again, in the same way, our justified worries about the future of the church, about its poor finances, its crumbling buildings, its dwindling membership, those fears should inspire us to continue to do what we can to support it, to look for our own role in its mission, and to cherish and celebrate what is still there to be found in it. For instance, on a day like this, when we come together on Harvest Sunday, celebrating here in this church. We do so by taking part in acts of worship and by offering some of our time to take also part in other activities, as hopefully gradually we will have more of them now. We had another messy church yesterday, which was lovely. And yes, also to give up some of our money for the church, especially after all that we have lost because of COVID. Money that, if we are honest, most of us can miss. I think in the end there's only one way to radically break free from all those unjustified and unhealthy worries that tend to make us more selfish and that hinder us to wholeheartedly loving our neighbours as ourselves. And that is to orientate our lives on the generous love of God, the love that He gives us in His Son, Jesus Christ. A famous prayer of St. Ignatius of Loyola expresses this in a very strong and very radical way. Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will, all that I have and possess. You have given all to me. To you, O Lord, I return it. All is yours. Dispose of it wholly according to your will. Give me your love and grace, for that is sufficient for me. This prayer is echoed in the well-known hymn, Take My Life and Let It Be. And we will listen to the melody of that hymn during communion. It is, of course, a very radical way of living a godly life. And there are many stories of saints who have lived such a life and has shown to us how much freedom and joy they found in it. You can also think of St. Francis. Tomorrow is St. Francis Day, those wonderful stories of how he left everything behind, gave away everything, and lived a holy life. But it is not easy to follow these saints in such a drastic way, especially not in our time and culture. We can, For instance, not clinging to what we possess in an anxious and selfish way. Growing in generosity and in gratefulness to God. Reminding ourselves that our deepest desires and longings cannot be fulfilled by what the world has to offer, but only by accepting God's gracious love for us. Because in the midst of all the changes and chances of this fleeting world, the Lord invites us to find rest upon his eternal changelessness. His mercy endures forever.